Hi everyone, and welcome to another video. This is the 2024 roundup. So if you never watched any of my videos this year, well, you can just watch this one and I'll try and cover pretty much everything that I put up in the last 12 months. I'm not really including shorts in this, it's just the long form stuff. And I'm doing it almost without any kind of script. So you're going to hear a few bits of rustling paper and perhaps the mouse clicking stop, start, things like that, and shuffling around as I scroll through videos just to try and remember what they're about. But anyway, let's start with the first one. So the year began with me running in the freezing cold, and that video was about running outside and why we shouldn't be a fair weather runner. And I really covered a lot of things about being outside. It didn't matter what the weather was doing, and that there was no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. I talked about winter sunrises and really the sort of joy of running in the snow and on forest trails and things like that. It was quite a nice video to start the year with. I think I was probably in quite a good mood when I filmed it. Actually, watching it back again, it doesn't make me feel like I should be in a good mood, but it was a good mood at the time. So that would be the first one that went up. The next one, oddly, was about New Year's resolutions, which probably should have come first. But that one was trying to explain why New Year's resolutions really just do not work. Most people can manage for a few weeks, maybe even a few days, but then they just give up. And there was 10 pointers on that video of things that you might want to have a little look at that are kind of standing in your way of succeeding in your resolutions. So things like, are you making the resolution too big? Are you not planning it properly? I assume those were 2 of them. There was 10 of them, so I hope I got lucky with those 2. But there was a few things for people to think about with regards to their New Year's resolutions and why you might want to make your resolutions maybe a bit smaller, maybe a bit more realistic, and then you'll hopefully succeed. And if you succeed with those, then you can build from there. The next one was about making it to 200 subscribers. So that is quite a big milestone. I remember when I only had 10 and they were all reluctant friends and family, but now I'm actually up at 360, which is quite an achievement this year. So I've gone up almost 160 or thereabouts. And it's not even the end of the year as I'm recording this. It's only the end of November, even though it's the New Year's roundup. I know you're probably going to listen to this at the end of December, but it's still impressive. I feel to have got to 360 something. So long may that continue. But the message with that was about consistency and hard work, and some of it revolved around the book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. So he's the guy that wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance, and I think he'd written something like 14 novels before that one finally was successful and then became a kind of major film. But he talks about just doing the work, and you just need to get up and write every day. He writes for 4 hours every single morning, and he doesn't care what he writes as long as he's writing. And hopefully what eventually happens is the muse, as he calls it, the muse shows up and he gets the great idea and suddenly it's on the page. So that was part of the message of the 200 scrubs. Oh dear, it's been a long morning. Subscriptions. As I said, long morning. So next up was a video about vegan cheese. So that's a company called Time Cheese, and cheese is spelled Chease. And if you just Google them, you'll see that they make a variety of cheeses which are very tasty. And I film myself eating cheese, if you can call it cheese. And they're definitely trying to break into an area which is very, very lacking for people who are vegan or plant-based, which is that cheese is one of those things that is so hard to give up. When it's gone, there is nothing that tastes like it at all. So they're doing a pretty decent job of trying to fill that gap. And in particular, I like their Big Red cheese, which is a kind of chili flavored one. That was really good. It was probably my favorite. So check them out, because I'm not being sponsored by them or anything, and I've not had anything free from them, but I just really like their cheeses, and I hope that you might get a taste of them and like them too. Next up was the video about making a wellbeing journal. So that was a journal I created. I spent a lot of time talking to patients about managing their wellbeing and their kind of lifestyle choices and things that they could be doing, and they don't seem to be able to get those ideas kind of down in one place, and it can be quite scatty, the thought processes around them, and not very consistent. So of course, lots of people talk about journaling, but I thought the easiest thing to do was just to create a journal and let them have it. So I created this journal, this wellbeing journal, which is on Amazon, and I downloaded them a bunch at cost price, and then I just give them away to patients so that they can spend every day monitoring their wellbeing journey. And it includes the usual kind of stuff like their hydration and their nutrition, sleep, etc. So that hopefully has been useful for some patients, but for me it was really useful to figure out how KDP works, which is the Kindle Direct Publishing mechanism, process, whatever you want to call it, on Amazon. And that was very interesting to do that. And I've done a few other diaries and journals since, but for me that certainly shows that if you're consistent and you keep doing the work and things, then eventually other things begin to happen just by virtue of the fact you're exploring the area you've got the passion for. And learning about KDP was useful for me, so that's been good. I hope the patients have liked the journals. Moving on from that, we went into doing a long run, and as I was running one morning, I realised I've not actually ever really talked about things I've learnt from running or things I've learnt to help me run, and I do a lot of it. I still don't think of myself as a runner because I'm very, very terrible, but this video had, I think, 11 tips that were useful to keep me going, and tips that have helped me run for longer. And maybe some people out there watched that video and took some of those tips under their belt, and they've been able to run hopefully better than I can, because as I said, I am a ghastly runner, but I try. On from that was how to succeed at anything, and that was about writing things down and making plans, because if you write it down, you're 40% more likely to make it happen, and it keeps you accountable. And when you're doing something and you're planning for something, in this case I was planning to do an Ironman event, and the most crucial part is having a plan. It's writing it down, having a note of what you're going to do every day, and then the next most crucial part is sticking to it. But if I had no plan, I wouldn't have stuck to anything. So making sure that you write down your plan, even if it's for a tiny little small thing that you're trying to achieve, is definitely worthwhile. And that video explains why. I mentioned before about the wellbeing journal. Well, the next video was about the 6 pillars of medicine, because the fact I cannot shake is that currently 71% of all death in the world has a link to lifestyle behaviours and lifestyle choices. And as a doctor, I feel I'm treating most of those with medications as opposed to trying to help people understand their role in their illness. So that video was about what each of those 6 pillars are, which, if you want to know what they are, they're healthy eating, physical activity, restorative sleep, stress management, avoiding substances, toxic substances and behaviours, and having positive social connections. And I'm currently doing a diploma in lifestyle medicine at the moment, so for me it's very personal, and I've had my own lifestyle challenges over the years. So I hope that video was one that people could watch and take some pretty good messages away from, and maybe combining that with some of the other things like how to make a plan, they may change their behaviours and improve their lifestyle. And they're ultimately they're reducing what's called their dailies. So daily, DALY, that stands for disability adjusted life years, and that is the number of years. It's not to do with your lifespan. So lifespan is how long you'll live for, but unfortunately people are becoming iller earlier. And the dailies are the distance between when you first develop a chronic disease to when you die, and that number of years is increasing. Ideally, you want to live a healthy and active life up until the last 3 months or thereabouts before you have to get help with things. But people are living for decades now with ill health and needing assistance with very basic activities of daily living. So I think if we could be a bit better at understanding our role in that and our responsibility, then we would ultimately do better. So that's what that video was about. Then I did a video on mindfulness, and it wasn't, I suppose it was a bit about mindfulness, but it was more about the reason that I do doodling and drawing. And actually in the last couple of weeks I've been thinking about doing less of that on this channel, and it's not, this sounds a little bit selfish, I suppose. I enjoy doing it, but the channel or the YouTube algorithm doesn't know what this channel is. It doesn't know if it's a drawing channel. It doesn't know if it's a health and well-being channel, and it doesn't try and promote it because there's too many strands going on here. So I was thinking I'd move away from the drawing and do more of the kind of on-camera video topics, which is hilarious considering this video is a drawing with me talking over it. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't quite figured it out. Again, I'm not really about the external validation, but part of me thinks if I could just play the game a bit better, then maybe I'd get the message out to more people, and that might be more beneficial. But that video did cover a few things about how to achieve mindfulness and how to avoid things like what if questions and those kind of negative narratives that get in your way, using mindfulness to perhaps avoid doing those things as often and be a bit more in the present moment. I followed on with a video about getting outside every day, and I think it was absolutely torrential when I filmed that video. It was pouring, but that video covers a lot of reasons why being outdoors is really good for you and why we should do more outdoor walks. And what's interesting is that during the lockdowns in 2020, people would have killed to go outside and do a daily walk, and now it just, all the paths and things that you saw in those first few months where people were allowed to suddenly get out for a bit, they were worn, like the paths were busy, there was people everywhere doing these walks, and now it's really dead. It's as if people have forgotten that physical activity actually is good for them, and the body does crave it, and when it's taken away from you, you'll almost do anything to get it. But now that you've got the choice, no one's doing it as much as they did before. So that video, perhaps watch that one if you're struggling with I used to do lots of walking but I can't be bothered anymore type mentality. That one might be useful for you. Now the next video, sorry, I'm laughing because I'm remembering about the trolling that happened with this video. The next video was about reversing type 2 diabetes. It was, how do you get type 2 diabetes? You know, what's the pathology behind it? How it's generally a lifestyle illness and what you can do to perhaps reverse it, particularly if you catch it early enough. And I got trolled. I got a really, really bad trolling message from someone. It wasn't on the channel, it was a direct message, who said that they were involved with writing the guidelines and that I shouldn't be slating the guidelines, and that they were a diabetic and that their diabetologist could not understand how they, of all people, could have developed type 2 diabetes. Now, I know this person very personally in a nuclear sense, and my answer to them was, in my entire life, all I saw you eat was marmalade on toast for breakfast, steak for dinner, Cadbury's whole nut and peanut brittle, and drink lots of glasses of fresh orange juice, which has about 8 oranges worth of sugar per glass. So you've got a high saturate animal fat diet there with a high refined carbohydrate diet there, which is the absolute perfect storm for developing type 2 diabetes. So either they're in a lot of denial or their diabetologist hasn't got a clue. But to me, it seemed like they were the most likely person to develop type 2 diabetes, and they did. But that person can't be told. So, and you know who you are if you're listening. Moving on from that, or I won't get any Christmas presents. The next video is about curing anxiety. Now, that video I think was quite important because I think in recent years anxiety rates have gone up, and the one thing I wanted to get across to people is that anxiety is a complete fabrication of your brain. It doesn't exist, Nothing is actually happening. It's your brain's way of trying to keep you safe when it's trying to predict that something bad might happen. So it will give you a lot of negative messages that mean you go onto the kind of hyper arousal pathway where you're worried that things might happen and you're looking around and your heart rate's going up and your breathing rate's going up, and that can lead to panic attacks and things like that. And a lot of it's driven by part of the brain called the amygdala, which is basically your fear center. And the example I use in that, which has been used hundreds of times, everyone who ever talks on podcasts or YouTube or whatever talks about this, but imagine you and I are talking in the savannah 10,000 years ago and the bushes rustle to our left. Well, if the bushes are rustling on our left and there's rainbows and butterflies on our right, what are we going to look at? We're going to look at the bushes. And that's because we're worried there's a lion in those bushes about to jump out and attack us. Now, until we know it's the wind, then we're still going to be paying attention to those bushes. And if it's a lion, then we know what to do. That's adrenaline that appears next, and then we fight it. Well, there's the 4 Fs. We freeze, we fight, we have flight, or we fawn. Fawn is to cuddle into something. That's a kind of, when you have a Stockholm syndrome type thing going on, you'll fawn at the threat. But generally speaking, anxiety is... Another way to describe it is on your marks, get set. Yes, that's an uncomfortable pause, isn't it? That get set bit where you're waiting for me to say go, that's the bit of anxiety. That's cortisol and stress just telling you something might happen. But because it hasn't happened, you can't make a decision. So we get into this paralyzed kind of state of anxiety. So hopefully the tips in that video will help people make decisions around their anxiety that might be a bit helpful for them. Geez, I didn't think I'd be speaking so long. I'm only about halfway through and it's about 17 or 18 minutes. I better speed up or you'll have all switched off, especially in this one, which is about how to get better sleep. So that video was about what was the point of sleep and 10 pointers that you could use to maybe try and get a bit of better sleep. And also that was the first video where I ever actually put a poll up. So again, I was, always learning. And I put a poll and said, what do people want me to make a video about? And sleep was the one that came top there. So that's why I did that video. The next video was I really enjoyed the next one. That was about loneliness and how to avoid it and how to sort of beat things like social isolation. Now in that video, I'm walking with a friend of mine up some Munros. Now a Munro is a Scottish mountain higher than 3,000 feet. And we had a beautiful day for it. But the guy I was walking with, Matt, him and I had sort of lost connection a wee bit because of various life things like kids and things. And we got back in touch and said, we need to make a twice a year effort to meet up and go and do something together just to keep that friendship going. And so we've done things like climb Munros or visit different parts of the country and things together and try and spend a night away from family and kids, and it's been really rewarding. So that video talks a fair bit about that, but importantly it talks about the Harvard study for adult development, which is a study that looked at people for 80 years, and it looked at a whole variety of things that helped them be healthy or made them unhealthy. And one of the things that comes out of that study is that the people who were happiest in their 80s were the ones who had the best friendships in their 50s. So that, if you're around my age and you're hitting your 50s now, think about your friendships, think about ones you could rekindle, think about ones you could foster, think about social groups and getting out there and being part of a team or a club or rekindling some hobbies, because this is really important now so that you have a long, healthy, but importantly, happy life as you age. Right, video after that was the second birthday, which basically says what it does on the tin. It was a video about the second birthday of me being on YouTube, and that was really nice to be able to say thank you to the people that have supported the channel. It also shows that consistency is key, and it's definitely worth sticking at something if you feel that it's the right thing for you. And for me, making these YouTube videos, I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I'll probably keep doing it. I said to my wife I'd only do it for 2 years, and here I am at 2.5 years, and I'm still doing them. Right, and then the next one was blood pressure and ways you could get your blood pressure down. I am fed up giving people medications when they will not take on board that they could get their blood pressure down, at least in part, by reducing the salt in their diet, by having more of a plant-based diet, by doing lots of physical activity, by getting better sleep, etc., etc., etc. And instead, people literally, and about 2 weeks ago, a patient actually said this phrase to me: "I just want the quick fix, give me the pills." And that is how people have been trained. They've been told that, don't worry, you can do what you like, but the pharmaceutical industry will help you out, as will your doctor. And unfortunately, those tablets begin to not work in some cases. So definitely people should be taking on a responsibility to get their blood pressure down themselves if they can, if it's caused by lifestyle choices. And I think often it is, but we don't live in a society that allows people like me to say things like that. We have to be very careful because we don't want to upset people or offend people. But that video was to say, look, if you are thinking about having some ownership over this instead of outsourcing your well-being to the pharmaceutical industry, then maybe here's some points you might want to take on board and give it a shot. And I have had a few success stories, which is good. Okay, almost at the end. 10 top reads. I think that's just 10 books that I chose kind of at random. I've got a list of loads, maybe almost 100 that I've read over the last few years, but those were just 10 near enough off the top of my head, which I thought these are really good books. If anyone's interested in going on a bit of a lifestyle journey, start reading those. And they really helped me, and hopefully there's things in those books that will help other people. I've given 1 or 2 pointers from each book, so do have a watch of that if you're looking for your next best read. Some of them are definitely not a holiday read though. Definitely not. So be careful. Be careful. Don't blame me if I recommend a book and you end up having a terrible holiday because it was such a hard read. All right. I then went on and talked. Well, I tipped my cards a wee bit about what's happening in my workplace. There's a lot of funding issues everywhere in the world, but where I work in Scotland, there is funding issues throughout the region that I work in, and the message we've been getting is do more with less and cut your services, and you just have to like it or lump it. Now, that's very difficult when you work in the medical profession because you took an oath to do no harm, but we're in a situation where we're almost being complicit by cutting services because we probably are going to end up doing harm, and there is very little we can do about it. However, those things are out of my control. We are doing absolutely the best we can with what we've got, and we still try to offer the best service that we can with the reducing resources. But this video had several things in it that people can use that might be useful in terms of controlling what you can control and how to make work feel a bit more like it's filling your cup. Because when you're in a situation like I'm in, it's very easy to feel that cup just empty and empty and empty and empty. And if you take the time to actually look at parts of your working life that you do enjoy and that you get fulfillment out of and try and get more of them into your day, then you might find that your life at work is a lot more tolerable. In fact, even perhaps enjoyable. So there was 7 tips in that video that you might want to use. Right, finally, the last one. I'm not sure if it'll be exactly the last one of the year, but it's certainly the last one, the last video I had up before making this video. And this is how to get enough protein if you're vegetarian or vegan. And it's got 9 different sources of protein from plants, which I discuss. I talk about the volumes. To be clear, the volume of protein or the weight or the amount of protein in those, it varies wildly depending on which bit of information you look up. Some of it is if it's cooked, some of it if it's raw, some of it if it's dried. It all changes. So I've given kind of best estimates in that video, and I'm sure people will pick me up on it and say, you said it was 4 grams, it's actually 6 grams. Oh, you know what? It's got some in it. Eat more of it. If you're worried about the quantity, eat more. You're going to struggle to eat enough protein on a vegan diet, so just eat lots. Anything I mention, eat lots of it. And if you're not vegan or vegetarian, well, if you're sick of eating meat and you're trying to bodybuild, well, add some beans in. For goodness sake, some seeds. They'll bulk you up as well. Right. Well, listen, I hope that has been reasonably enjoyable. I've enjoyed ranting. I don't know if anyone will listen to this video or watch it, I should say, but I do hope you've had a wonderful 2024. I've really enjoyed doing this for the last year, and looking back at the videos has been phenomenal. And there's a lot of work there, and I'm really proud of some of that. I watched the Ironman video just before filming this, or before making this recording, and I was almost in tears because it's such a happy memory, and to have that forever is just wonderful. So here's fingers crossed for a good 2025. I hope all of you are in good health for the coming years, and that certain recent electoral results don't make people too crazy. That's for all of you across the pond. I'm sure there'll be worldwide ramifications of that. And there's a couple of other things I'd just quickly like to say. I'd like to shout out just to two people who I watch all the time on YouTube, or maybe three actually, I think three, that keep me going, because when I watch their videos, I think, I love watching your videos, and you look like you love making your videos, and therefore I want to keep doing that. And that is Peter Draws, who is crazy, but I absolutely love what he does, and I love his drawing style, and I wish I could do more drawings like him. Bobby Duke, who is from Bobby Duke Arts, he only posts a video once every couple of months, and these are incredible creations, both the video but the things he makes. And then lastly, a guy called Simon, a bloke in the woods, who's a guy from England, who basically just goes on camping trips and then tells you about all his equipment, and then makes a pasty or something at his campfire, and then drinks a beer with his pal, usually someone called Ginge. It's wonderful to watch, and I'm really pleased for those guys, because they get thousands of views, and it's well deserved. And yeah, for what it's worth, you keep little YouTubers like me going, because I find what you put online inspirational. So thanks everyone. I'll see you in 2025. I hope it's a great year, and I hope you have a lovely, well, what do we say now? Festive period, and a great new year. And yeah, long may your lum reek, as we say in Scotland for a new year. Okay, take care. See ya. Bye.